So it's really kind of taking it to a step, many steps further, where we're introducing some of the largest chains to have restaking. So you can restake a lot of different tokens such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, some of the move chains like Aptos and Sui. So we really like focus on the actual omni-chain kind of use case.
This content is brought to you by BitGo, which is one of the top crypto custodians in the crypto industry. BitGo works with many big companies and brands, such as Pantera Capital, Bitstamp, and Bitcoin IRA. Nike also selected BitGo to power its wallets for its NFTs. And BitGo has many great services, such as hot wallets, custodial wallets, self-managed cold wallets, and NFT wallets. Many institutions trust BitGo with its top-level security and incredible services, such as being able to deploy your capital while it's in custody, which includes lending, borrowing, trading, staking, DeFi access, and more. If you'd like to learn more about BitGo, please visit bitgo.com, link in the description. Welcome to the Thinking Crypto podcast. I'm your host, Tony Edward, and with me today is Warren Anderson, who's the co-founder of Exocore. Warren, great to have you back on.
Hey, Tony, great to be back on.
Warren, as we were talking about before the recording, it's been 2 to 3 years since we've last spoken, but you've been in the crypto industry for a long time, building, doing great things. Give us a quick rundown of your background so folks can get to know you a bit better.
Yeah, they say the days are long, the years are short. Now I can measure my career in crypto in decades. So I just surpassed the 10-year mark. I got into crypto actually as a miner. I just caught the tail end of the CPU back in 2011. It was I kind of parlayed that into jumping into building on blockchain full time in 2013. Started a company called Hedgie, which was the first OTC wholesale platform for Bitcoin. So there was no OTC market back then. Miners would just dump on exchanges, create a lot of volatility. And we created a platform built on Bitcoin using Bitcoin script, hash time lock contracts, and multi-sig to actually allow these Bitcoin miners to sell direct to institutional investors, and created a really cool product there. Ran it for a couple of years, ran into some regulatory headwinds in the US, which is kind of a common theme, I think, of like when you're pushing the envelope of innovative ideas. At that time, we actually sold the technology to Wire, with the Y, and then I joined Ripple in the summer of 2016 to lead all their crypto initiatives, including the XRP Ledger. Worked with the core developers there to kind of bring the XRP Ledger into broader existence, decentralize the network. Also co-created their on-demand liquidity product called ODL, which has become their flagship product, doing billions in volume every year. And I was there for 5 years, which was an eternity. But the XRP community I think is just awesome to work with, and Ripple just kept feeding me more interesting problems to solve. But I woke up one day and said I want to do something different, so I joined a research project called Findora, which is doing L1 for privacy using zero knowledge. And I was really compelled by the problem of the lack of privacy in crypto. I think that the invention of Bitcoin would have been more private had zero knowledge technology been more scalable at the time. But unfortunately, it wasn't. So now we have a radical transparency and across all these different blockchains, which some view as a feature, some view as a bug. So, but I think that the privacy space is definitely important. There's a lot of friction and a lot of pushback, I think, from the regulatory regime. But ultimately, I think zero knowledge proofs are going to be a massive technology to help increase privacy. So after 2 years, I really was itching to start something from scratch again as a founder. I hadn't been a founder, since Hedgie, and so I dove in deep. Kind of had been tracking a lot of interesting developments. Restaking was something that I had like triple underlined as like this is something that's interesting, solves a real problem. It solves a problem that I have faced many times across my career, bootstrapping these networks the decentralized security of these networks. It's very costly. It takes a lot of time, requires a lot of skill. And frankly, like the Web2 developers, which are, 30 plus million in the world, they don't want to have to roll their own blockchain. So they just want to build, applications and
Right.
provide useful services. So we started looking at the restaking space at the time. It was only EigenLayer. EigenLayer was still an academic project.
Mm.
We wanted to kind of propose a different alternative designed EigenLayer that was more omni-chain and that could scale to multiple chains. So brought together, an awesome team, RJ Lon, who's the former CTO of Harmony,
Mm.
and he and I've been, close kind of like collaborators off the side, for a while. And then Raluca Popa, who's a professor at UC Berkeley in cryptography and security. She's a global expert in multi-party computation, zero-knowledge proofs, and is one of the few in the world that actually writes these very complex cryptographic schemes. So we're lucky to have her to kind of help us solve, principles from first principles, right?
Mm.
But happy to dive in more deep, but that's a little bit
No, that's
back.
great, man. You're an OG and you've been around the block. You've seen a lot in the crypto industry. So there are a lot of people who are still not familiar with restaking. So maybe we can set the table by first, if you can take us into the behind the curtain, what is restaking? What is the purpose of it?
Yeah, so put it like very simply at a high level, staking is the ability to effectively take your token and use it as effectively collateral to secure a proof of stake network such as Ethereum,
Mhm.
and there's plenty others. And that really what that does, that's called crypto economic security. So
Mm.
what that does is you're saying, I'm going to lock up this token, and that token is going to help guarantee some of the verification on chain. However, and for that, I'm going to get rewarded
Right.
for doing that. But if something happens on chain, there's a violation of the protocol rules. That same token is subject to slashing. I could actually lose funds. So there's an upside and a downside. And this has become radically popularized really with the migration of Ethereum through the Shanghai upgrade to actually support proof of stake. And so it's on the backs of that, restaking was kind of proposed as another kind of expansion on the fundamental staking, mechanism. So what
Mm.
restaking does, it allows you to take that existing stake token
Mm.
and effectively stake it again to secure not just the proof of stake chain, but an additional set of services that are what we call off-chain services or actively validated services. And so it takes that existing mechanism to be able to restake and secure all these other services that aren't operating directly on chain.
Mm.
Classically, these are oracles, these are token bridges, these are things like data availability layers. These are also like more things like distributed validator network technology networks. So there's a lot. We're actually kind of focused on AI use cases. So we've been working with a variety of different partners in the AI space to take that restaking and be able to restake tokens to secure and decentralize AI, which we think is
Mm.
really important.
Yeah, for sure. So, question on the restaking. So, y- obviously, like you mentioned, let's say the first layer is staking, you got the restaking on top of it. Are you earning additional rewards via doing restaking?
Correct. Yeah. So the same mechanism, there's a reward, upside and downside. So the reward comes in the fact that these off-chain services or actively validated services are actually paying fees to rent that decentralized security that's being restaked, to secure their services. So they're paying fees to effectively rent this service. Now, if they have any issues, if they violate, any of their own kind of preset protocol rules, then they can actually slash, the actual underlying restaker. Now, the restaker will inherit, some of the yield through the fees on top of the base, level of yield that they're getting from the base layer blockchain. And then they can also subject to slashing. So if those AVSs violate in any of the protocol, if they double sign, if they, if there's any data formatting issues, then they can actually get slashed on that. So there is an upside and a downside. And this is something that is actively, being worked on because each AVS type is going to have its own set of slashing conditions. And the slashing conditions are bucketed into what they call objective slashing conditions, which are cryptographically verifiable. They're effectively easy to prove. And then there's the subjective set of conditions. These are harder to prove. These require actually some people getting around and coming to consensus on whether the slashing condition was true or not. And we can talk more about that, but we introduced this social consensus layer to act as that kind of consensus basis for coming to agreement or disagreement on these subjective slashing conditions.
And yeah, let's go deeper into that because I'm curious as to how Exocore fits into. Let's say I hold ETH, right, and I'm staking ETH, and then if I want to restake that ETH, do I have to use a protocol like Exocore to do that? Or is that kind of what you're enabling?
Yeah, so now there's a couple of different kind of players in the space. Eigenlayer being kind of the first and the largest. We're fast following on the heels of Eigenlayer. They've done a tremendous amount of work to introduce and invent the restaking, concept. We're taking it many steps further. We view Eigenlayer as what they call single chain staking. So you restake ETH or liquid staking tokens, versions of ETH, and to back, to secure these AVSs that are effectively building on Ethereum. Then there's like what they call the cross-chain restaking, which is a little bit like what another player is doing called Babylon. They're taking Bitcoin and being able to stake Bitcoin to secure services built on Cosmos. So they're doing a cross-chain. So we view the single chain restaking as kind of like single player mode, right? You're just, playing the computer. And then what Babylon's doing with cross-chain restaking is kind of like multiplayer mode, where it's just you playing a friend. And what we're introducing is omni-chain restaking. So combining the single chain restaking, the cross chain restaking, also introducing novel concepts like union restaking, which allows the AVSs to restake to each other. We call this massive multiplayer mode. So it's really kind of taking it to a step, many steps further, where we're introducing some of the largest chains to have restaking, so you can restake a lot of different tokens such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, some of the move chains like Aptos and Sui. So we really focus on the actual omni-chain kind of use case.
Oh, that's great. And that absolutely makes sense. There's so many blockchains, right? There's not going to be one chain to rule them all. So it makes sense to have interoperability and support many different chains that are getting adoption. And it's fascinating that, you mentioned Bitcoin. So it doesn't have to be a chain or an asset that is proof of stake. It could be a Dogecoin if you want.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's funny. Someone is in the communities definitely wants to see Doge restaking. The Exocore protocols protocol agnostic. It's one of the design principles that we decided. It's also implemented as a layer one, so it's community governed. So if someone wants Doge restaking and they can rally the community to support that, they can propose a vote to actually bring restaking to Doge. There's a lot of reasons why that would be a bad idea, but it's also interesting. There's a strong community. It is decentralized. There's some also on the alternative. But yeah, we basically implemented this design so that as a layer one, Exocore takes on a lot of the complexity of the restaking operations, like calculating the rewards, doing the token distribution of the rewards, coming to agreement on the slashing conditions, etc. That's all baked into the L1. Most of the restaking players out there are all based on the smart contract layer. We've taken that complexity and put it down in the protocol layer, which we think is where it should be, because that's where a lot of complexity should be. So therefore, that's unlocked the ability for us to run these super simple smart contracts on Ethereum, on Solana, on UTXO chains like Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't have, smart contracts, but all these smart contracts have to do is lock, unlock, and slash. So this kind of goes back to my days of building on Bitcoin and understanding that minimizing the attack surface of these these at the compute layer is actually a security benefit. So these smart contracts that are running on these different chains are insanely simple. So we don't have to worry so much about the smart contract risk. We can, the audits are very well contained. There's not any novel behavior that's introduced, and the complexity is minimized. So we think there's security and simplicity, and that has also unlocked the ability to be able to support UTXO chains like Bitcoin, because all it's doing is locking, unlocking, and slashing, and virtually every single blockchain has those functions.
Right. Now, you mentioned you're working with different AI players. Are those AI crypto specific or AI blockchain specific companies, or others outside of crypto, like, for example, Render and Fetch, which are AI crypto theme?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So it's kind of cool. The co-founders we're all based in Silicon Valley, so we can't sneeze without hitting an AI founder.
Yeah.
So being, there's close proximity with a lot of these AI companies. Raluca is also a published expert in AI security. She publishes at the top conferences, in the world. So has a lot of credibility, with that. So we've actually been talking, to a whole canvas of different AI startups, both the AI crypto startups and the classical, traditional AI companies.
Hmm.
And the pitch that we give is like, hey, especially for the traditional AI companies, it's like, hey, do your thing, keep doing your AI thing, but let us bring the decentralized security through Bitcoin and Ethereum to your network, so that you can run decentralized infrastructure and you can start doing, training and inference on some of this decentralized, using decentralized security. And there's a lot of benefits to that, because, the big fear is that, AI is so centralized, it's so black box and so closed, that there needs to be an open, decentralized version of a lot of what we're using today, to actually counterbalance some of the powers that could potentially go rogue and take over things, which is something we don't want.
Right.
So we think it's an attractive way to do this. And these traditional AI players are like, hey, this is sensible. This actually makes sense. Crypto is crazy, but this is a use case that we can lean into.
Right. That's fascinating. I don't know. You probably can't name drop, right? Who you're talking to.
Yeah, unfortunately not, but we will be announcing more, players that we're working with. And it is really exciting. And we were skeptical at first. The whole AI crypto narrative, we're like, I don't know. So, but we wanted to really dig in deep and make sure that there's an actual set of use cases that crypto can help support. And we're uncovering those, with flying colors right now.
That's awesome. Um, Now, you're a layer one protocol. Do you have a token, and what's your security look like?
So there will be future, I guess, announcements, around that. It is a layer one blockchain. We actually developed a novel concept where we can bootstrap the network without a token initially.
Wow.
So we're doing this actually using restaking. So the concept is called restaked proof of stake, or RPOS. And this allows us to actually dog food our own design. So we're actually, our engineers are really excited because they actually get to, it's very rare for an infrastructure engineering team to be able to actually use their own infrastructure. So we're actually using that and bootstrapping the network with, native ETH, native Bitcoin, etc. And that allows us to effectively kind of bootstrap the process in a very open, decentralized manner from day zero, which is awesome because that kind of we really are I would say decentralized maxis, but we call it a functional decentralization.
Wow, that's fascinating because you don't see much of that, right? There's usually a token that goes with, especially a public blockchain versus private. Um, are there plans to add a token in the future, or you think this is the model you're going to run with?
So we think the community is definitely going to support a token. There is, a need for one for just, simplifying some of the, for instance, the gas, fees, etc. But it's very, very much that, we're the first class citizens, at least initially, are the native restake tokens that are going to be bootstrapping the security of the network. So but yeah, I think it's exciting just to see these kind of new systems come out.
For sure. Now, a big question folks are going to want to know is this safe? Is restaking safe? Given that we've had problems with DeFi and exploits and so forth. So security is top of mind for a lot of folks. What can you tell us there?
So you're talking to one of the most paranoid people in crypto, and so I'll say nothing's safe. Do your own research. However, I will say this. RJ and we were looking, to start something new. We could have started anything in crypto, and restaking was attractive to us for a lot of reasons. One, it solves a core problem, which is like, it's actually quite hard to find crypto projects that are solving an actual problem. And so it solves a big problem. Two, it is inherently has a really great value accrual kind of flywheel where the value accrual, there's actual value accrual back to the L1s, which is really important. It also is very friendly to the validators and operators in the network, because they're able to earn additional rewards in many different ways. And we always feel like it's really good to be on that side. And then lastly, this isn't like a huge speculative kind of DeFi project, right? Where there's like speculative trading and no knock on that. I think crypto thrives off of, speculation. But at least for what we wanted to work on, we wanted to work on something that was more classical in terms of like security and infrastructure. And this kind of checked that box in addition to the other boxes. So we see it as effectively as safe as some of these kind of crypto projects can get, but there's always ways that things can go wrong. It is a new concept. There are some kind of novelties there, so you have to be careful. But I think everyone in the restaking space is mostly treating this with like taking a cautious, optimistic approach, and we're doing the same thing.
Now, are you guys set up to have big institutions, let's say BlackRock, for example, to use your protocol for restaking because maybe they're filing for the Ethereum spot ETF. Eventually, the SEC will green light staking in those ETFs, and if they want to do restaking, can they use your protocol to do that?
Short answer is yes. So we've been talking to a lot of institutional funds that are currently staking, and so the idea or the concept of them restaking is interesting. What they really want to see is risk adjusted yield. So being able to adjust, or take all these risk parameters into some dashboard to make some risk adjusted decision based on the how much they restake, etc. And so there's a lot of really great risk platforms that are being built that can analyze the risk based on, which AVSs to restake to, what is, the potential, risk of introducing new liquid restaking tokens, etc. So there's a lot of work being done, and that's what gives institutional investors confidence, to be able to participate in a market like restaking, because effectively, what these institutional fund managers are, they're risk managers. And so they want to make sure that they're making those educated decisions with, risk adjustment.
Mm. Um, Recently I saw on Twitter, Exocore's June onboarding quest. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we've been kind of running kind of a series of onboarding quests, with the various different quest platforms, introducing, more and more community. We've been seeing, a huge growth in community. We've maintained a pretty strict Sybil protection because we don't want a whole community filled with bots. So these are real people that have interesting things to say. It's one of my favorite things, going back from my Ripple days, is growing these communities kind of from scratch. So the June onboarding campaign is really just introducing the next wave of what we call exonauts, or they refer to themselves as exonauts. And it's just exciting. I think it's, these are the best times, or the earliest stages of community. And there's a lot of ways that they can participate to earn, rewards already, through, stable coins, by actually participating in some of the quests, answering questions to learn about how Exocore works. The engagement rate of the community is super high. I think over 60 to 70% of the community has actually participated in these quest programs, that we've got embedded on the Discord. So I'm really happy to see, that type of engagement. And it's great, when you can just answer questions and earn, and potentially earn, actual rewards on that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So we got staking, we got restaking. I would love to get your outlook on what might, I don't know if you want to call it third generation of staking looks like, 5 years from now. How do things look for staking? Do you see both retail and institutions earning rewards passively by staking their tokens? And maybe there's other cool things. I don't know if you want to let all your secret sauce out, but or ideas, but whatever you can share.
Yeah, I think where the market, I mean, it's very interesting to see these. Well, I would classify restaking as a multi-cycle kind of phenomenon. This is Restaking is going to be around for a long time, and I think what you're going to see is this shift toward, really what it is like programmable trust, where you're actually able to take some collateral and program it to secure different things, and be able to use it in a much more kind of liquid way, where you can take, these LRTs are also an interesting financial innovation, where you can take your position and get a receipt token, and use that receipt token to do things in the DeFi, markets that you wouldn't normally be able to do if your collateral was locked up.
Hmm.
So, I'm very inspired by what happened, or what people are able to come up with. I think the market also has a very, being an open market, it has a kind of a self-cleansing mechanism, that if certain things have too much risk, or they kind of cross the line of the risk reward ratio that you should normally respect, they tend to get wiped out. And
Hmm.
I think that's actually okay and healthy. And that's just the market kind of doing its self-cleansing. And what happens is new lessons are learned, the market continues to grow, and only the best kind of survive. So I think that's kind of where we're at. I think that the restaking, like I said, restaking is going to be around for many, many years. It's like the tip of the iceberg.
Sure.
Shanghai upgrade has only been live, now for what, less than a year. So we've got a lot of room to innovate on top of it.
For sure. So speaking of, roadmaps and time that needed to innovate and so forth. Anything on the remainder of 2024 roadmap that you want to highlight?
Oh yeah, 2024 is a big year for Exocore. So we've been in this completed a DevNet, which we were running up until January, February. We launched phase one of testnet, which was also being run kind of privately. We're opening up phase two of testnet to onboard the initial set of validators. And then we'll be opening that up to kind of the retail restakers and doing some really cool, fun, gamified experience, that we've been working on to help, use things like Bitcoin and ETH to decentralize AI, which we think is an awesome mission.
Awesome. I wanted to ask you some questions about the crypto market at large. I mean, you've been here a long time, Warren, and things have grown significantly. I hinted before about Bitcoin ETFs, Ethereum ETFs. What are your thoughts on the Bitcoin ETF approvals? And all these Wall Street firms are here, and obviously they're trying to get Ethereum ETFs now.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, so I've got an uncle who's he actually started a bank back in the late 90s, back when you actually could start banks.
Mm.
And I talked to him in literally in 2012 when I think I signed up for Coinbase for the first time. And I said, hey, Uncle Bob, you got to check out this Bitcoin thing. And he's like, oh, is there an ETF for it? That was his first question. And then I said, no, what's an ETF? I'm not a finance guy. So, he's like, oh, it's an exchange traded fund. I called my broker, they buy it for me. And I'm like, no, there's definitely not that, but I'll let you know what happens. And so every Christmas we have this conversation. Is there an ETF yet? Is there an ETF yet? So finally this Christmas I can say, hey, Uncle Bob, there's an ETF. He actually texted me. He said, I'm already on it. Got the broker to wire. I said, well,
Wow.
you missed out on 10 years of
Yeah.
alpha, but finally, but I think it's important, it's an instrument that allows, more mainstream players to get in the space. I think there is, I'm cautiously optimistic about it because there is a centralizing function to it.
Yeah.
It's no secret that Coinbase is custodying, 80% of the ETF funds. That is a little concerning for me. I'd like to see more distribution of the institutional custody across more players like, Fireblocks, et cetera. But I think it's net, it's a great movement. Everyone's been waiting so long for this institutionalization of crypto, and finally we're seeing that. I would like to see, more of a index, style ETF of a cross section of many crypto assets. I think we're still probably one cycle away from seeing that. But I'm a blockchain maxi when it comes to, like, I'm a big believer there's going to be, thousands of chains,
Mm.
and each chain is going to have its own kind of use case. And so I think having people get exposure to some of the chains outside of the Bitcoin and ETH, I think is really important.
Yeah, well said. Um, I'd love to get your thoughts on crypto regulations. We seem to finally be breaking through in DC, where Congress is paying attention. We saw some movement with the FIT 21 bill getting passed in the House, Democrats siding with Republicans to repeal SOB 121 from the SEC. Presidential candidates are talking about crypto now. What a world we live in, man. What are your thoughts? You think we get some comprehensive regulations maybe in the next year or so?
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic again. I read the Fit 21, or like at least the highlights of it. And I was very impressed. It has language in it that feels like it's crypto native.
Mm.
It's someone was, or lots of entities were probably behind it, kind of helping to shepherd it. There are some things I don't, like about it. I think that we can adjust in the Senate version.
Mm.
But I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm also like a battle-hardened, crypto veteran. So I'm also eyes wide open and understand that, whatever politics, it blows like the wind. So
Right.
whatever you're seeing may not appear to be what it actually is. I
Mm.
mean, look at what happened, the legislation in 2008 with like the Volcker rule. That was designed to effectively decentralize the banks where there's not, any central a single point of failure, but it did the exact opposite. So what it did is it took all those small banks and now there's only like four or five big ones, right?
Wow.
So I'm very cautiously optimistic, like I said, because the bill could say one thing and then ends up, the opposite happens. So it's not just the bill, it's the implementation and the legislation and the actual enforcement and creating the path for these entrepreneurs like myself to be able to participate and build things in an innovative way and know where the rules of the line the rules of the law are kind of drawn. I would like to see more of like the Clinton era policy of what they used was effectively uh, uh, do no harm and kind of like hands off, but do no harm kind of approach. And that's really what I think the space needs, where they are obviously regulating, some of the downside risk, but letting the upside kind of flourish. And I think if that happens, then the US is going to be in a great position for the next several decades to continue innovating and advancing.
Yeah, great point on, being vigilant about the bill and how they implement it. We got to watch that closely. That's a great point. And I think sometimes we get excited by, oh yeah, this is making it through, but have you read the details, right? The devil's in the details. So great point there. Um, Final question here before I let you go. You were certainly instrumental at Ripple and building some cool products, and you've been here for a long time. Do you still keep in contact with those folks? And are they looking at what you're doing for Exocore and things like that?
Yeah, I kind of laugh sometimes. I feel like I see Brad Garlinghouse more now than I used to because we're both on the same travel circuit in terms of going to these conferences. But yeah, it's just a phenomenal team. Built a really great set of technologies. I think it's one of the most misunderstood projects and companies in the space. But in terms of solving a real world problem with cross-border payments, and I'm always rooting for the team, and still like to reconnect. There's a huge Ripple alumni base. I always tell people that PayPal has the PayPal mafia, Coinbase has the Coinbase mafia, but when you're in a mafia, you don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So we'll say Ripple has a big diaspora of people all over still working in crypto and is very strong. So
Warren, thank you so much for joining me, man. Really cool stuff with Exocore, and appreciate your knowledge and insights. And as things progress and you get to announce some of those partnerships and stuff like that, we'll have to have you back on.
absolutely looking forward to it.